Hello and welcome to the Liberty Coin and Precious Metals Radio Hour. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or today. Today I'm very delighted to have with me Stephen Lendman, who hosts the Progressive Radio News Hour on the Progressive News Network. Stephen is a jack of all trades, I believe. He writes literally on most topics. I guess one could say that he has a form of full spectrum dominance on the truth. And he has quite a bit of work under his belt, and he's contributed quite a bit. You can find his articles all over the internet. At Global Research in particular, you can find them. Also at his blog. What is the address of your blog, Stephen?
Well, the way I access it, Justin, and by the way, thank you for having me on. I simply Google my last name, Lendman, but others can Google Steve Lendman blog, and that's the simplest way to access it, and they'll see the latest articles that I've written, and the one that I've top featured today I call Waging Covert War on Iran, and dare I suggest that what's covert now very possibly is heading for more hot war. It's inconceivable that the people running this country would want to do it, but it really looks like we're heading in that direction.
I agree, and it's also unfortunate that they seem to be pushing us in that direction with a similar propaganda model as leading up into Iraq. What do you cover in your article, Waging Covert War on Iran Today?
Well, I cover an awful lot of ground. I talk about the assassinations that have been conducted against Iranian nuclear scientists. There have been 4 or 5 of them targeted and killed. Well, my guess is it's got to be one of a few sources. It's either CIA, Israel's Mossad, Britain's MI6, maybe U.S. Special Forces. I mention them because it's public information. When Petraeus was back in the Middle East, he authorized, obviously with Pentagon support and I guess Obama administration support, to deploy U.S. Special Forces, and the Washington Post wrote about this, and they mentioned the number 120 countries around the world. Now just imagine these characters. These are trained killers, and they're operating covertly in at least 120 countries all over the world. Only 193, I believe, the precise count. Well, you can betcha they're in Iran, they're in Syria, they're in every country in the Middle East. They're in every country that America feels is especially important. So they're in Russia, they're in China, even Western Europe. I mean, we spy on our allies. We've got these characters, and they're not in uniform. They're in local garb, I'm sure. But these people are trained killers, so maybe they're involved in the assassination attempt. My guess is it's probably a joint operation. Not necessarily all of those elements combined, but America works very closely with Israel, CIA, Mossad, and this is what's going on to destabilize Iran, bring up its nuclear program, which is a complete red herring. Let me let you jump in, Justin, and I'll explain why. Being fearful of Iran's nuclear program is a red herring. It's very much featured in this article I wrote, but I've written about it before.
And, Russia, in particular, Putin has signaled to the world that the U.S. ought to keep their hands off Iran, which is why it is such a scary moment. It could be leading us towards a path towards some sort of World War III, whether that be an extremely hot World War III or a World War III composed of proxy wars. I guess we don't know, but there are certainly other cards when it comes to our interest in Iran other than Iran itself, as it is very important strategic point and an ally of China and Russia.
That's exactly right. The key issue for America is not the government that rules any country. The key issue is the country an independent one, or is it a U.S. client state? So America doesn't care if countries are ruled by Democrats or despots or anything in between. They only care about countries with leaders who will knuckle under to the U.S. agenda and pretty much follow U.S. policy. America wants to be boss, global boss. And you could summarize it this way: America wants regimes and countries around the world to understand, in Washington's terms, that their boss and what they say goes. And if other countries don't go along with that, then they become targeted one way or another, depending on how important they are. Of course, Iran is extremely important, very oil and gas rich. It's I think officially number 3 in oil reserves. That's officially proved reserves. They may have they could be number 1 because they could have a lot of unexplored oil they haven't officially found and declared yet. And they are either number 2 or number 1 in gas reserves. Officially, they're number 2. But they just made a major gas find, and where there's gas, there's oil, so there's oil there too, but it's especially important as a major gas find, and very possibly that makes them the world's leading country in terms of gas reserves. Iran is very strategically important, so Washington wants to change the independent leaders and turn Iran into a client state. And they also want to control Iran's resources to decide who gets them, how much, to have control over price. There's a lot of control over price, a lot of market manipulation. But if America is controlling the world's resources, America has the most to say about what they're going to cost. They can ratchet them up, they can ratchet them down, they can do anything they want with them with their Wall Street friends, because all markets are manipulated, every single one of them, including energy. This is America's game. America wants to ace China out of the region. China is extremely dependent on Middle East oil, including Iran, very important supplier. China, in diplomatic terms, told Washington to go to hell on their sanctions. They're going to keep buying Iranian oil, and my guess is they will buy as much oil as Iran wants to sell them. The only issue is price, and I'm sure they will try to negotiate for the best price they can. And they're in the driver's seat right now because the new sanctions were just imposed end of the year, targeting Iran's oil industry and a lot of other activities related to it.
And one of the exorbitant privileges of the United States in having the world's reserve currency is that when most nations of the world go out to buy oil, they have to first swap their currency into U.S. dollars, which of course props up the U.S. dollar and makes it look stronger. Something Iran has done is move away from that model, and they'll accept other countries' currencies for oil, which of course is not in Washington's best interest.
Oh, that's exactly right. And other countries are doing the same thing. There are bilateral deals between countries, Russia and China, that have an important economic relationship besides their political and strategic relationship. I hope that will bond and be stronger because that's a powerful force counteracting U.S. belligerence. But they're doing business in their own currencies. And they can also do business in the euro. That's the logical alternative. I guess they could in the Japanese yen as well. But there is a move away from the dollar. That Washington fears greatly, at least up until the point where maybe a world currency that Washington controls can take the place of the U.S. dollar. But that certainly is not imminent. That could be years in the future, if it ever happens at all. And considering the disaster going on in the Eurozone, the 17 Eurozone countries under the Euro system, they are really cratering in slow motion style. And there are at least 6 or 7 countries in the Eurozone. Greece is the most prominent. We hear about them in the news. But you got Italy, you got Spain, you got Portugal, you've got Ireland, and Belgium. and others are getting. Even Germany is getting weaker. I wrote an article yesterday, put up this morning that I wrote yesterday, the Covert events in the eurozone, and Germany had showed very, very weak year-end numbers, and Germany is the European economic juggernaut. The healthiest economy. I mean, they have stood up as others have had real big problems. Britain has very severe problems. They are literally going under slowly. Their basic number, GDP, production, other numbers are heading south, and Britain is not part of the eurozone. They maintained independence, the British pound, but Germany, France, Spain, and the other 14 Eurozone countries all trade under the euro. And I wrote an article about a euro expert who wrote a book in the mid-1990s. He was advisor to the system, putting the eurozone system together, and he insisted that the idea was absolutely harebrained. It was doomed to fail, and literally it is failing in real time before our eyes now. When it'll all come apart, Justin, I don't know. It could be, as Bob Chapman says, I mean, push could come to shove this year, or it could be 5 years from now. But the road ahead is very, very dismal.